This is the latest film from Francis Ford Coppola's American Sotro production company. And like many of their films, it's directed by another Coppola. This time it's not Sofia, but rather Gia Coppola, whose previous film Palo Alto I have actually seen but remember basically nothing about. Which probably means it's not a very memorable film, and to be honest, this really didn't look great either, primarily based on the critics and viewer ratings. Because had I not seen any of those, I would have been very excited about this. There was just something intriguing about the movie, and it had a decent cast too, with people like Andrew Garfield, Maya Hawke and Nat Wolff in the central roles. So I wanted to check it out anyway, and maybe it doesn't end up being as bad as people claim it is. And you know what, it was at least off to a good start, because I really enjoyed the intro. Just some good music set to some shots of the main character, intercut with some old-timey title cards. It felt fresh and different, just a creative way to start the movie off and set the tone. After that we get to know the characters a little bit more and learn that Maya Hawke's character is actually a bartender/waiter who's also an aspiring YouTuber, and Andrew Garfield's character is a bit more enigmatic, a bit more of a mystery. But anyway, these two get together and start hanging out, start to slowly develop a friendship, and things sort of go from there. But the core of the movie in a nutshell seems to be some sort of critique of social media. And basically the entire plot dives head on into that world and what it might look like. If you want to chase that social media influencer dream of having millions of followers, what it might take to make it and what that world does to people as individuals, but also as a world and a society, and props for taking on an ambitious subject like that. And I will say there's a lot of creativity thrown into the mix here as well. This is not just your bog standard boring movie that does the expected at every turn. And while I'm giving it praise, I might as well also say that the performances were really good too. Especially Andrew Garfield pretty much nailed his part and did exactly what he needed to. He got to show some range and clearly had fun with it, but unfortunately those things don't really save the movie. Because the writing is just not great, from the characters to the general story. I just didn't care for it. It didn't really do anything to get me on board. Mainly because, well, one main character is just kind of an obnoxious a-hole, and the other is just way too naive and goes along with everything. Which only leaves Nat Wolff's character, who is the only seemingly reasonable and decent person there. Except he of course doesn't get the spotlight here and is pretty much relegated to supporting cast only. And then of course we have the actual portrayal of the social media in this movie. And while it certainly makes some good points, they're not exactly new or groundbreaking points. It also goes to pretty great extremes here, and it just felt a bit unnecessary. And one of the biggest issues was also the fact that this feels very much, well, like a critique made by a boomer who doesn't really understand what social media actually is. Someone who has just seen it from a distance, heard terrible things about it, and decides to make a movie about it. Which is kind of hilarious considering Gia Coppola is apparently only 34 years old. Now granted, I'm about her age and definitely feel utterly disconnected from what the kids are doing these days. But I also don't try to make a movie about being a social media star. And if I did, it would be very carefully put together satire, with the emphasis on the carefully part. Because I think this sort of attempts to satirize the whole thing, but it just doesn't really work. And as a result, neither does the movie as a whole. It's just kind of a mess. It's not completely void of things to like and appreciate, but it's just not very good either. And I'm pretty much leaning towards giving this one a low 5. Boop. So I think most people can probably skip it, or you can also ignore my advice and check it out anyway, because after all, I'm not your dad. But hey, what are your thoughts on this? Have you seen it? Did you like it? Let me know. And if you enjoyed the video, maybe give it a thumbs up or sub to the channel, because that would be fantastic.